Welcome to Spam Filter for Your Brain, bite-sized ponderings on how our thoughts influence our behaviour and our lives, and because we're all connected, how our thoughts impact the world. I'm here to help people reconnect with their bodies and declutter their brains. And I don't believe that we should just magically know how our emotions and our thoughts impact our lives if no one ever teaches us. So let's learn this stuff together. Rejection sucks, doesn't it? It's something that I know so many people deal with, myself included. And I've been thinking a lot about this idea of rejection and how we use other people's thoughts to validate stories that we are already telling ourselves. And this could be in a work context, it could be in a relationship context, it could be in friendships, it could be for work if you are freelance, especially putting yourself out there. How are you using other people's autonomy and choices to reinforce some story that you're telling you about you? And in my thinking about this, I've been looking at some of the ways that I deal with it and looking at some of the tools that I find most useful. And I nailed it down to one, and I thought I would share that with you this week in case you find it helpful. Save it for a rainy day or the next time you feel a little bit rejected. If that's not something that you're in right now, and I'm super happy for you if that is the case, but store it in your first aid kit. And that is noticing where someone else's thoughts about you or someone else's choices back up something that you say to yourself, which feels like an old story that you're carrying that probably isn't very kind, that feels perhaps a little bit mean or critical. And I'm thinking probably a lot mean and critical. And just taking that moment to pause and see if you can spot what that story is. What is the thing that you think their rejection confirms about you? If you were to stop and pause, what is the thing that you think they're saying that they haven't actually said in words? So is the thing, I'm not good enough? Or is that thing, you wouldn't be capable of this? Or is that thing, you're not worth it? Or any flavour of that? These are just some common themes that often come up in coaching calls, but definitely come up in my head. I am not immune to this stuff by any means. When you notice those thoughts, it's worth identifying them like, there's a story I've had playing in the background, whether I noticed or not, that probably has been influencing some stuff that's going on for me. Do I want to carry on playing that story out? Do I like the results that it gets me when I tell myself that stuff? And if not, what can I do with it? And the what can I do with it bit is quite often just noticing that it is there first off. And then with some kindness, bringing a little bit of compassion to that story. And by bringing a little bit of compassion to it, I mean, as a fully grown, complicated, brilliant brained adult that you are, being able to hold more than one thing at once. So maybe you could be telling yourself that you're not good enough. And you could also tell yourself at the same time that you're quite a good friend. Maybe you might be telling yourself that this is never going to work out for you, but you could also be telling yourself that you are quite kind. You might be telling yourself that you're never going to get any work and this isn't going to pan out financially for you and everything's going to shit. And also that you are smart and creative and have found solutions in the past. Where is that duality and that complexity that you can hold more than one thing at a time? Because you can, and we all do. And when we have cracked open that hard shell of ferocity that we quite often hurl at ourselves, there is more space just to be able to go, okay, and what else? Not that's not true, I shouldn't think like that. There, it doesn't matter. But like, okay, that's painful. That hurts. And also this. I know this to be true about me as well. Because naming these beliefs that you already have show the strength and courage that you already carry within you at the same time as feeling hurt. They're not separate. One doesn't mean that the other one isn't there. And acknowledging some of these value systems just shows you a little bit more about who you are as a person. That these are real strengths that you carry with you in your daily life and that you try and embody them. That's what value systems are. And focusing on these things that we know to be true and that are important for us is really important because it anchors us back home. It anchors us back to ourselves. And then when we have this compassion and awareness for what's important to us, there is more space to go, okay, this feels real heavy right now. Yes, I'm worried that no one's going to choose me. Yes, I'm worried that work thing's not going to turn out. Yes, I'm really hurt by that thing that my friend said behind my back. This is fear, and fear is a perfectly natural response to feeling rejected. This is old programming going on in our brains. It is familiar and it's understandable and it's exceedingly, exceedingly human, but it doesn't define all of who you are, not by a million miles. And just trying to softly remember that you yourself have these values in place as well as this hurt, even though there is that fear there. It just serves to ever so slightly soften and rewrite the narrative of rather than this is the thing that always happens. But even in the face of this, I know who I am. Even when I'm frightened, there is care here, kindness here. Even when someone says things that hurt and land in me in a place that is so tender, that also I can show up for my mates on a Wednesday lunchtime. What are these things for you that make you you rather than making someone else's behavior mean that your identity crumbles? It doesn't erase the anger or the fear or the rejection, but it just creates a little bit of space. So you can hold both the hard feelings and your inner strength at the same time. And that space helps you feel less overwhelmed, less like you're crumbling to old things that might not have served you very well. It enables you to feel more steady, more calm in yourself, and more certain of your steps forward. And slowly it builds a habit as to how you can respond over time when other people do the things that they're going to, because they will, because people. And with this slow shift into being able to hold with tenderness the two things, you can start to rewrite your story. You just shift some of that stuckness of the ways that you might have been being very unkind to yourself in the past. Not by trying to force it away or get into any kind of denial, but just allowing your brain that more than one thing can be true. There is more than one truth to hold, and someone else's truth doesn't mean more than yours does, and it isn't more important or more valid than the things that you hold true and the things that are true for you. And with that, you can bring yourself further home to remember that you are worthy and whole even when you're hurting and even when it feels hard. I hope that that is useful for you this week. There are resources in the show notes. I would be so grateful if you find this podcast useful, if you were to go onto your podcast listening service of choice and write a little review, because that's how they want to recommend it to other people and get into their ears. And that would be really useful for me. If you'd like to give me a little hat tip back, that would be something so kind, and I'd be so grateful. Wishing you all of the care and for you to remember that this is here next time you're feeling a little bit hurt. And I'll speak to you next week. If you've been enjoying what you're hearing on the podcast, you will love Self-Care School. Self-Care School is longer versions of this, more in-depth and more personalised. We have a whole hub of courses from body image to boundaries, perfectionism, time management, and a whole range of other topics. You name it, there's probably a course on it. But most importantly, we also have a weekly group coaching call where you get to apply this stuff to your everyday life and get support to try and untangle your own story from some of the emotions that you might not be enjoying in your life. If you would like to learn how to apply this work to your specific situation and to be building a life of your dreams, I would love to see you inside. Do pop over to selfcareschool.co.uk.